If you've ever busted your nose putting on a plate carrier, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, guys. Like and comment. The comment section is utterly and completely out of control. Get in there and find out why it is the most important place to be during this whole COVID business to keep yourself sane. I will not police you guys. If you guys are looking to support the channel, the biggest support of the channel right now is Big Daddy Unlimited. Big Daddy Unlimited is like the Costco of the gun world. 99 cents will get you in, and then of course you have cheap products. But is it going to be worth it? Depends if you spend money. If not, probably not. If you guys are looking for sick bags, gloves, and plaid, we have Vertex, and of course for all your ammunition needs, LAX ammo. Ladies, gentlemen, and my often forgotten, but not by me, Mitch 2001 helmets, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that goes back to our roots, which is gear. Specifically, we're talking about the Crye JPC versus the Crye SPC. I love doing gear videos because this is ultimately why I started this channel, and I want to start doing a little bit more of them, and this is going to be the first in a series of videos, so it should be a really good time. Now, as I usually do, full disclosure on my relationships with Crye and all the companies that are kind of going on here. So as far as Crye Precision is concerned, I have no relationship with Crye Precision. There's no exchange of money or product or anything like that. The JPC 2.0 that I have is issued. The Crye SPC was bought by me. Now, despite it being bought, I try to be as objective as possible. A lot of time when things are bought, somebody tries to justify the purchase by making it seem better than it really is. As is always, I try to be as objective as possible. Understand that biases always come into play, but I do my best to stay right in the middle just for you guys. As far as Crye goes, I have met Caleb Crye, the owner of Crye Precision. Really nice guy. Actually said he watches my videos. If you're watching this video, Caleb, let's do some more collaborations together. But in any case, there is no exchange of anything for this video. I'm just doing it because of the love of the game. Now, before we launch fully into it, want to give a huge shout out to the people I consult with for these videos. Always talk to a variety of people in MARSOC and USCCA and Aspect War, NavSpec War, tons of great professionals out there whose brains I pick to get a better understanding because my own experience is limited. I want to give an even bigger shout out to Chuck Pressburg from Pressburg Consulting, Army SF dude, really great guy. I would really recommend checking him out. Very knowledgeable on all subject matter and also does a lot of consultation for a lot of military groups. So definitely check him out. Can't sing his praises enough. Big thank you to him. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. So first off, there are a couple different plate carriers from Crye that you can currently get. There might be a little confusion about which ones you might want to get. You have the cage plate carrier, the AVS, the JPC, and then we have the SPC. The question is, why are you going to get, an AVS versus an SPC or a JPC? Well, it comes down to the types of systems that they're using, specifically a harness type system. The cage plate carrier is pretty famous because it distributes weight so well. Much like the AVS, it is a harness system. On the harness sits your gear, your plate bags themselves. You can attach everything to them. Because of that, it's a very stable system, and it takes a lot of that weight that you typically have that's not distributed very well, that would go directly on your shoulders, and it kind of distributes it more evenly. That's a good thing about a harness system. The problem with the harness system is, of course, that it's more bulky compared to more minimalistic carriers. I know minimalistic carriers are all the rage nowadays, especially started with the inception of the JPC. But that being said, because there's less structure to the carrier, I mean, you set it on the ground, so it's going to kind of flop over, you tend to have some certain issues that you can run into as you really begin to weigh these more minimalistic carriers down, like the JPC. So if you go to like some of the more crazy minimalistic carriers, like the Spirit, this is an extremely light plate carrier. And that's really good for certain applications, but if you need to carry a lot of weight, you're gonna get a lot of things, you're gonna get a lot of issues such as lower back pain and a couple other things. Now, what constitutes a lot of gear? If you have to carry a shit ton of ammo, a shit ton of radios, a shit ton of batteries for long missions, an AVS might be a better solution as a harness system to more evenly distribute weight. So that's where you have the AVS, that's where it sits. Now, compare that to the JPC and the SPC. These are both plate carriers that have been cut down to just what you need. If you have space on the JPC, it is simply so you can put something there. If it's not needed, it's gone. So you have a lot of that comfort that you get with the AVS is done away with. What's good about this is it allows for better mobility. Same thing goes for the SPC, but it's using slightly different material. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get into this video and talk about it. The first thing to talk about is that the JPC has kind of become the gold standard in minimalistic plate carriers. And to this day, I still think it is one of the best. So I use the 2.0 primarily because I like the different AVS pouches that fit directly onto it. I think it's very innovative and they work very well. So we have the JPC. Now we have the SPC. SPC, if you notice, has pretty much the same cut as the JPC. The main difference being in where it attaches from the plate bag into the shoulder straps is a different colored material because it is the same material as the front of the plate bag on the SPC, which is why it has a slightly different look to it. But other than that, they're actually virtually identical in shape and cut. So as far as that goes, you pretty much have the same abilities with both the SPC and the JPC when it comes to shouldering the rifle, to moving around in it. They're very, very similar. Now, where they begin to diverge is in material. So the Crye JPC is a more traditional Cordura type material. Now, there are some different materials used to allow ease of movement and that type of thing, but for the most part, if this thing gets wet, you pretty much have the same problems you run into with any plate carrier. As it gets wet, it's going to get much heavier, it's going to retain that, it's going to take a little bit longer to dry off. Now we compare that to the SPC. The SPC uses an Airlite material. Now a lot of people have asked, is the Airlite material the same material used in Blue Force gear and a lot of their plate carriers and their lightweight designs? It's similar, but not exactly the same. The material used on the Cryes is a little bit stiffer, has a little bit more rigidity to it than what I've seen from the Blue Force gear. Now that being said, I do love the Blue Force gear stuff. It's not a knock on them, it's just differences in material and philosophies of what you typically want. Now with the SPC versus JPC, what happens with that material is this material better resists water. So it repels water better, and because of that, it doesn't get as wet or it doesn't get as bogged down. So if you're in a really wet environment, say like Washington here or Maritime or anything like that, the SPC does a lot better at staying light and at drying itself out. Now beyond that, instead of having your traditional type webbing, the SPC is actually laser cut. So directly into the material you have laser cuts so that you can thread your MOLLE on, and that goes for where you attach your various magazine pouches. Now this particular one is using the AVS attachment type system. So it just kind of threads in through the MOLLE there and then Velcros on. Now, if you want to attach MOLLE pouches, you do need to get the MOLLE adapter that attaches where these magazine pouches are typically attached. Again, many of the Crye products, especially the new ones, are made just to natively work with the Crye products. They kind of want you to use that whole set of features, and they work very well. There's a lot of great products that they come out with, and I have no problem with using their stuff. Again, so both on the front of the plate carrier, you have this material, and also on the back. Now, another place that we differ is on the insides of the plate bags themselves. So if we take a look at the JPC and we open it up, we can see that we have our typical stretchy material, especially on the sides. So the original JPC is a real pain in the butt to fit any type of plate that was not like your standard SAPI cut. SAPI cuts are a little bit different than 10x12s, and because of that, a lot of plates weren't fitting, so they added the stretchy material to the side of the JPC 2.0s and the SPCs, which allows for a larger variety of plates to fit, which is good. But we can see right up here towards the top, we have some vent 3D mesh right here that allows for a lot of that sweat to evaporate and allows some circulation. Now, it's not a whole lot, and the reason is for certain types of plates, especially a lot of the earlier military issued plates, you really don't want to expose those to the elements. Both UV light and dust and that type of stuff will begin to break down the fibers on your plate. And the last thing that you want is for your plate to have any type of ballistic issues because it's not covered and it's getting dirty and it's getting worn down, and then it doesn't have that ballistic rating that it should because it's been broken down by the elements. And that's why the reason on the JPC and many other plate carriers, you have the plate almost completely encapsulated. Now, compare that to the SPC, you can see that the inside is all of that 3D mesh material. And this allows for amazing circulation. And again, it comes down to a philosophy of use. What is the purpose for having this plate carrier versus the other one? And again, if you're working in wet maritime environments, and especially even in dry environments, this is going to allow for a lot more circulation. The problem with that can be your plates. Your plates have a covering to keep that ballistic material protected, because if they don't, that could run into some issues. When I was talking with Chuck Pressburg about this, he was noting that if you had a plate that didn't have any type of protection around it, that it'd be a good idea to maybe take it to a sew shop or somebody you can add some type of covering over it, some type of woodland or just black covering, doesn't matter, something to protect it, since the plate carrier isn't going to be protecting it quite as much. So that is possibly a solution unless you have some of these newer plates which already have the coverings which keep them protected. As far as which ones have those protections and those coverings, there are so many plates out there, that's not something I can answer right off the top of my head. It's gonna be something that you're gonna have to ask your manufacturer about. But do be aware of that issue if you do choose to get the SPC, is that you do have the plates opened up to the environments. So even look on the sides here, you can see that in many cases, the plate is straight up just open to the elements. And we can see here, much like the JPC 2.0, we have a stretching material that allows for a lot of different types of plates to fit. And even with all that, the SPC breathes incredibly well compared to the JPC. And the JPC is already a very lightweight carrier that allows my fat boys to sweat and cool off. So the SPC is a definite improvement in that. Just be aware that your plates are going to be exposed more, and that's something to be thinking about. Now, another note is that both the SPC and the JPC 2.0 have zippers, so you can add the various Crye back panels that are out there. I don't have the Crye back panels on both of these plate carriers. I'm running the Haley Strategic flat packs. It's what I typically prefer to run on my plate carriers for a variety of reasons. The Crye carriers have a tendency to kind of sag a little bit lower and put that weight a little bit lower. The Haley packs stay in place, and on top of that, if I'm wearing a pack over them, which is almost all the time, they collapse down all the way and they're much more usable, which is why I do that. So you can see that in the JPC 2.0, and then you can see also on the Crye Airlite, we have that zipper on the side right there and on either side, so you can add those Crye packs. And then again, underneath, it is simply laser cut moly. And again, if you don't have any type of pack on here, you are going to be exposing a huge portion of your back plate. So again, talking about your plates being exposed, it's definitely a concern if you don't have those coverings. So hate to hit on that topic twice, but it is an important fact if you are using an SPC. So we've talked a lot about the cut and the materials used, but the question is the SPC stands for structural plate carrier. The question is, what does that mean specifically? How does it differ from the JPC? Well, that comes down to the cummerbunds primarily. So the cummerbunds are the area that attach from your back plate bag and attach to your front, and they come around your waist right there. So on the JPC, you have a pretty, well, now it's considered standard, but at the time it was pretty revolutionary, a skeletal cummerbund that allows you to breathe better, and it allows for attachments of various different types of pouches that you need. It was a pretty forward-thinking design at the time. Now on this one, it doesn't look as skeletonized because I have my side plates installed. So on almost every plate carrier that I run, I have side plates. These are just the standard AVS side plates, and they work very well. Just always a good idea to have a little bit more armor if you need it. And on the skeletal cummerbunds, they are pretty stiff. They do add some rigidity to the system, but not as much as you get from a harness type system like the AVS. Enter the SPC, which has the structural cummerbund right here. This thing is incredibly stiff, so trying to compress it right there, can't. It's very strong. That allows that weight to be distributed a little bit better. It acts a little bit more like an AVS. So that kind of puts the SPC right between the AVS and the JPC in my mind as far as weight distribution. I am a huge fan of this cummerbund. And in stark contrast to the JPC, you simply lift up the front flap, you Velcro it in, and you place it down. The SPC has these little tabs made of the same Airlite material. It's very, very stiff. And this material slides into these little channels right here. And once they slide into the channels, you lift up the flap and you Velcro them down, just like this. And then you have your cummerbund in place. And again, it adds a ton of rigidity to the system. Now, a couple notes about the cummerbund for the SPC. The biggest thing to note is size. The SPC cummerbunds are obnoxiously large. I'm about 6 foot, 185, 190-ish pounds, 41, 42 inches chest with about a 31 to 32 inch waist. With a medium, it absolutely swallows my body. It's just enormous. So the small is a much better system. Now I still have the mediums on because I bought them and I'm gonna run with that. So all I did was I carried jury rigged them. So the way they mount up in the back is they insert in through these slots. So all I did is I pushed them in a couple more MOLLE spaces, and it's not bungeed off the way it should be, but it works for me, and I'm gonna continue to run the mediums. So if you are anywhere around a 33, 34, you're probably gonna be better off with a small cummerbund rather than the medium. My bigger dudes out there who are just, you know, berserkers, you're gonna do better with your mediums. But understand, I think for the vast majority of people, the smalls are gonna be a better option. Now, a couple other notes on the SPC. They've improved the cummerbund specifically in the way that the emergency release tabs lay. On the JPC 2.0, the emergency release tabs, you can see them right here, were obnoxious in the fact that they didn't sit flat when they were put underneath your flap. So because of that, you always had a little bit of that flap pushing out and they didn't lay flat. Not a huge deal, but it was just kind of annoying. With the SPC, they've corrected that, and these are able to lay completely flat to where you can still get to that emergency rip-off point and you can get this off very easily. So again, if you need to remove the SPC, all you have to do is pull both those tabs at the same time, and then you have these tabs on the underside of your shoulder pads. You rip both those, it undoes the shoulder pads, and then you're able to get out of your plate carrier if you're in a underwater egress situation. For all my Marines and Air Force guys out there, I know you guys love that underwater egress, always a good time. So when it comes to the SPC versus JPC, the SPC is, in my mind, a much more comfortable carrier. The reason for that is both the Airlite material in the plate carrier itself, and especially on the cummerbund, adds more rigidity to the system, which is much needed in the vast majority of cases. Because of that, the SPC sits better, doesn't move as much, and helps distribute the weight better. I don't feel as sore or as achy as I do when I wear a JPC for a full day or a couple weeks in the field or a month in the field or what have you. The SPC is just a more comfortable carrier. The SPC, however, does have some issues. Like we said before, the plates are exposed to the elements. Because of that, some people may still opt to run with the JPC. Now, a couple quick notes. The SPC cummerbund is compatible with the Crye AVS, and I would absolutely recommend running the SPC cummerbund on there. It is not compatible with the JPC, unfortunately. So on the JPC, much like the AVS and many other plate carriers, there are simple MOLLE tabs right here to attach my push-to-talks. So I'm running two right there. Now I have them attached with the Ferro Concepts PTT retainers. Those work really well. In most cases, most guys are pulling the little alligator clips off of the push-to-talks, and they're simply rubber banding or they're zip tying the push-to-talks into place because they lay flatter. And especially with those alligator clips, if you go prone, it can push up on the alligator clip and then you lose your PTT, and that really sucks. So that's typically where they go. And I don't mount them up towards the shoulders because they can get in the way when I'm trying to shoot and that type of thing. So I like to have them a little bit lower. Now with the SPC, it's very puzzling, but right where that push-to-talk would go, which is right here, they have that area not laser cut, so you can't thread in your typical push-to-talk retainer that you'd normally use. You could thread it in right here, but the problem with that is if you're running like an ATAC, an Android Tactical Assault Kit, or whatever you want to call it nowadays, an end-user device, it can get in the way of your push-to-talks. So it's very odd that they didn't add in the laser cut material right there. Now you have these tabs right here, and these are for adding in any variety of swift clip type chest rig systems like Spiritus or the Haley rigs. And you can attach your push-to-talks there, but they don't sit as well as they do with a typical MOLLE type attachment system. So right now I have the Ferro Concepts PTT right here on my left shoulder strap, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. I might just end up moving my push-to-talks down to my cummerbund, or I might figure out some other solution out there. But it's just odd that they didn't put in the laser cut right there. I might end up cutting it, but I'm wondering about if it's going to tear. So it's the only unfortunate part about the structural plate carrier, in my opinion, is mounting of comms, specifically your push-to-talks. Other than that, it's very similar to the JPC in terms of being able to route wires on the inside and all that kind of stuff, and perhaps even a little bit easier due to the very skeletal nature of the system. Another great thing about the Airlite is the radio pouches. So specifically, the radio pouches are run internal. Now, for a long time, I didn't run internal radio pouches because they just tended to be a little bit uncomfortable for me. And that's kind of how you're built and that type of stuff. But with these new Airlite radio pouches, what happens is they're actually threaded in through where the tab goes on the Airlite material. And then they're Velcroed in. So typically what happens with a radio pouch is when it's on the inside, the only thing keeping it against your body is that pressure from that cummerbund. Because of that, it always tends to dig into you, and over long periods of time, you can get all that kind of stuff going on. And that kind of sucks. But what's cool is with the structural plate carrier, because you have that really stiff tab from the cummerbund right there, and then it threads through this hole right here, and then it attaches in, that really stiff cummerbund actually holds that up. So you don't have to have all that pressure holding that radio against you. Because of that, running radios internal with the SPC is very, very comfortable. And it's something I love about this system. It's one reason I'm likely going to be completely moving all my kit over to the SPC in the very near future, because of the comfortability of running my radios internal. And that is a very cool thing about it. Now, in conclusion, which one is better? It definitely depends. Depends on what you do, and it depends on a lot of things. Because of the ease of integrating radios and wearing them internal with the really nice cummerbunds on the SPC, it's very likely that I'll end up making the SPC one of my main plate carriers in the very near future, as soon as I figure out the PTT issue and have a little bit of custom work done to it. But again, the SPC is a phenomenal plate carrier, as is the JPC. You can't go wrong with either. Do your research, find out what's going to work for you, and you're going to find the plate carrier that is going to best fit your needs. Again, I'm not going to be able to do everything for you guys when it comes to your decisions, so come to your own decisions through studious research. But the thing about it is, as cool as these plate carriers look, what makes you really look cool is training. Make sure you train in your kit. I don't know why there's been a huge pushback against people training in kit and people making fun of people training in kit. Again, it's America. You can do whatever the hell you want. And you should be training in gear that you have for contingency situations, whether you're civilian, whether you're using for work in the military like I do, whether you're in law enforcement or whatever you do, train in your gear and get better. If you need training sources, we have Bear Solutions, Cogworks, Hilly Strategic, Not My Dad, Pat McNamara, Larry Vickers, Core Solutions, so many great guys out there willing to give you their knowledge. Make sure you get in there, get that knowledge. Love you guys. Thank you for watching. And I've got nothing else for you. Last thing for you guys, we're a little bit deeper into the COVID deal. Hope you guys are all doing great, getting all shaggy and growing out your hair. Make sure that you're continuing to improve yourself and you're not resting on your laurels during this time. Again, I've said it in the last video, but make sure you've picked something that you've decided to improve upon from the last week. So last week I said I was going to work on Pilates, did that, core stronger. This week I'm specifically working on explosive movement. I'm following along with what Pat McNamara is doing in a lot of his combat fitness videos. Again, highly recommend that you check those things out. Guys, thank you for watching. If you've gotten this far, my biggest supporters are my Patreon guys. I can't thank you guys enough. You guys absolutely rock. You help pay for lights and all of the stuff that goes on in making this video's production so much better. Can't thank you guys enough. Love you guys. We're done for real.